Hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our debut edition of a new weekly MBA Watch video chat. It's sponsored by Gatehouse Admissions, where the founder is with us today. She's Liza Weale. She's an MIT Sloan graduate and a former Bain consultant who, in fact, has done nearly 20 years worth of MBA admissions consulting. Welcome, Liza.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here, John.
All right, we have a really cool candidate today. Let me introduce this person. Really some very solid credentials. This was a person who calls himself Mr. MBB FinTech. So we know, for example, that he worked for 3 years at an MBB firm, which of course would be McKinsey, Bain, BCG. Maybe, Liza, this guy worked at your old shop. He then transitioned into venture capital, where he's been working for 6 months. He's got some pretty solid stats: 760 GMAT, a 3.7 GPA in econ from no less than the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He's in the right sweet spot for his age, 26. He's got a couple of cool extracurriculars. He was president of his college rugby team. And he's a volunteer for the Diversity Network, which I assume is part of either his VC firm or maybe was part of his MBB experience. So, Liza, what do you make of this candidate?
Well, I definitely see a lot of strengths here. I mean, one thing right off the bat, I love that he is already in VC. I can't tell you how many people I speak with that say, I'm going to business school to transfer into venture capital. And here is someone who has already made that move. So I think that already, to have that perspective when he's going into business school, is going to be quite valuable to his peers.
In general, would you say that 2 jobs are better than 1 job when you apply to an elite school, or it doesn't matter?
You know, what really depends is what you've done at each of those, in each of those roles. So, I mean, if a school had its druthers, I think they would rather see an additional experience on top of just one set experience, even at a, in an MBB type firm. However, that's not to say folks coming just straight from MBB won't succeed in the application process. But on the flip side, to the same extent that having that second role will be helpful, it's all what you do in that role that's going to matter and potentially convince the admissions committee to accept you.
Now, this guy is aiming really high. His first choice school is Stanford, which we know has the lowest admit rate of any prestige MBA program in the world. I think it's 6-7%. His other targets are Harvard, Wharton, INSEAD. How does he line up for those schools? Well,
I definitely think he's got a solid shot at Wharton. He is a graduate of the program, the undergrad program. And they like undergrads who come back and pursue their MBAs at the program. I've certainly seen that happen in the past. Stanford and HBS, I am somewhat bearish on. I would want to, my biggest concern for him is whether or not this is too early for him. I think with only 6 months at his VC firm, I don't know if that's enough to prove to the schools 2 things: that he knows it's a space for him, and that he's, made an impact and made a difference, whether it's, finding a new investment or really partnering with a venture and helping them change their operations, whatever it might be. That's one of my biggest concerns, is just whether or not he's going to have the experience for GSB and HBS. I'd also say I would want to tease out, there's 2 other things I would want to tease out. One, really make sure he has sufficient amount of leadership. There are, as you already mentioned, there are some pieces of evidence when he was the president of rugby and the network, the diversity network he's volunteering with. But these schools really want to see a lot of leadership and initiative, and not sure if he has it or not.
I mean, would it make a difference if he came from a well-known VC firm? I mean, if he was working at Sequoia, for example, does that significantly increase his odds at a Stanford?
I think it does, and it's also going to depend on what his recommenders say, right? It's always going to come down to, even if he's got a Sequoia on his resume, is he a valuable team member? Is he somebody that they are willing to advocate and go to bat for in the recommendation process? Then I think they might be willing to overlook that rather short duration. But I do think the other thing that I think the extra time might be valuable for him is, given he wants to move into a more operational role. I mean, he could do that right now. I would argue he could go get that role right now. And so the schools, I think, are going to want to see some real proof that he knows that this is the path for him, and that's going to be that extra time that will be valuable for him.
Yeah. Now at Stanford, it's often said that there needs to be an X factor, whatever the X factor is for a candidate. And I'm not sure I see that X factor. I'm not sure that you see it, which is giving you some hesitation that he's a likely candidate for Stanford. You agree that there always needs to be some sort of X factor, some sort of special sauce that really differentiates a candidate at Stanford?
I just always think of their motto, change lives, change organizations, change the world. Where I would want to dig in with Mr. MBB FinTech is, so what's the drive for FinTech? And really, what is his source of motivation? I
Mm,
think if there is enough passion and motivation that is driving him, that can be in itself his X factor. But it's when they're looking for more than people who just want to find, the next Stripe or something like that. They're really looking for people who want to change the world in a positive way.
yeah.
And I don't know, as you said, I don't know if he's got it. That'd be a place that we'd want to dig into.
Yeah, that's really true. So it sounds to me like you're bearish on Stanford and Harvard. You're bullish on Wharton, and I would assume INSEAD.
Yep, that's correct. And I think the other point I would make is that, look, if he doesn't get a yes, if he goes for it this year and doesn't get a yes from Stanford or HBS, I don't think that means a no forever. I think that's a soft no, saying, all right, let's just see what you got, take another year, get some more work on your belt, and then reapply. So I think that's one thing he needs to consider is, well, am I going to be in a tough conundrum if I get into Wharton this year? Do I want to hold out for another school? He might be facing that situation come January or December when he applies, and depending on when he applies and when the acceptances go out, he might be in that conundrum of deciding what to do with that
Oh,
acceptance.
Liza, how do you make that decision? You know the old phrase, "A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush." You get the bird in the hand, and the bird is Wharton. Do you really want to wait for Harvard and Stanford and hope for the best?
Yeah, that is a good question, and one I don't generally try to weigh in on too much for my clients. I think it just really depends on, can they see the career outcomes that they want from the schools that they have a yes for? I mean, he's already, it would be a tough one and a fortunate situation to be in, but given he's already got Wharton on his resume, he might be willing to hold out and give it another shot and actually reapply to Wharton. As even if he's accepted one year, he could reapply the following year and make a case for that as well.
Yeah, I'd say go for it. I mean, look, he's got gold credentials, Wharton undergrad, McKinsey Bain BCG,
Mhm.
the transition to a VC firm. You're right. He gets a little more experience under his belt in venture capital, and he has a few accomplishments that he can point to there. He's a real viable candidate at Harvard and Stanford.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And I think for me, what's exciting is sort of digging into that second layer, that what's driving him, what's motivating him, and where has he really created impact and change for these organizations. And I think that's the story he's got to tell for these schools when he applies.
Super. Liza, what a pleasure.
It's great. It's great being here. Thank you so much, John.
My thanks to you. All right, you've been listening to Liza Weale, the founder of Gatehouse Admissions, on our MBA Watch weekly video chat series. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Join us next week.